Solar green grass seed. We're getting to the end of the series. Pretty close to the end. It's late in August 2022. I like to see what my yard looks like. Looks pretty good. I'm sitting here waiting on the guy to show up to aerate my yard. I'm going to overseed with the solar green grass seed again. And then I will have one final clip to show you what it looks like a couple of weeks after I've overseeded. Last year the stuff germinated in less than 1 week. And I could have cut it at the 2-week mark. But there's something else I wanted to mention to you. Let me walk on down the road here a little bit. Honestly, this yard really looks good for this time of year. You know, back in the winter I did a solar green update and I talked about all the Poa annua I had in my yard. And I also mentioned that down here on this section of my yard, I had used Tenacity last fall to treat some crabgrass and other broadleaf stuff I had. You can see I've still got a little bit of crabgrass here. I did not have Poa annua down in this section. And at the time when I made that video, I was questioning, you know, hey, is it possible that Tenacity could be used as a deterrent to Poa annua? Well, I think I've got the answer to that. This is Tenacity. It's an expensive little bottle. The active ingredient is, I'll probably butcher this, mesotrione. I'll try to put a caption in there to spell that for you, mesotrione. It's a small bottle, but it doesn't take much. 1/2 teaspoon mixed with a gallon of water will treat 1,000 square feet of turf. Now, it comes with a little syringe so that you can measure out, you know, you can measure the stuff out by the teaspoon. They also recommend that if you're going to use Tenacity that you go ahead and use a surfactant. And one YouTube video said the surfactant helps it stick to the leaves of the weeds you're trying to kill. Another video I saw said that it breaks up water, the film of the water, so that it will be absorbed quicker into the plant. So, you know, you have opposing views of what a surfactant does. But anyhow, you're supposed to use a surfactant with the Tenacity. This morning I reread the label on the Tenacity, and sure enough, it is not effective against Poa annua after the Poa has emerged from the ground. However, it is effective as a pre-emergent to prevent Poa annua. So there's your answer about, hey, can this prevent Poa annua? Yes, Tenacity can allegedly do that. Now, the big question is, hey, can I use Tenacity when I seed my yard? Again, YouTube is just full of videos about using Tenacity at the time they freshly seed a yard or overseed a yard. And so I think it's pretty safe in most cases. However, I don't have an answer yet as to whether or not you can use Tenacity when freshly seeding or freshly overseeding a yard using solar green grass seed. And the reason I have a question about that is because Poa annua is also nicknamed annual bluegrass, and solar green is also named Texas bluegrass. I don't know if biologically they're close enough molecularly to be affected adversely by this Tenacity or not. So I've sent an email to Jonathan Green, who makes that solar green grass seed, and I have not heard back from him yet. So hopefully by the end of this series I'll be able to give you an answer as to whether or not you can use Tenacity to prevent Poa annua at the same time that you're seeding with the solar green grass seed. Last year I did not use the Tenacity on my yard until, I'm trying to remember exactly, I know my new solar green grass had already germinated and was, I think, at least 6 inches long before I put the Tenacity out. So I have not yet tried it before solar green germinates, but I know you can use Tenacity after it germinates. I think I put the Tenacity out even before I made my first cut last year. Anyhow, we'll wait on a definitive answer from Jonathan Green Grass Seed Company. Well, there was some kind of scheduling conflict. We had some crazy weather over the weekend, and the guy could not get out here today to aerate my yard. And I didn't want to wait any longer because this solar green grass, from what I've read about it, says that you can seed it as early as August the 15th. And part of my experiment is to see if you can actually seed a new yard or overseed an existing yard that early in the year. I mean, there's some companies, I had one a couple of years ago, wouldn't even sell me the seed till after September 1st because they were afraid that it would fail, and they didn't want that on their record. Nor did they want me to waste my money, so they say. I just got one of these core aerators. I bought it from Lowe's, I believe, years ago, more than 10 years ago. And it's worked great for me. Just throw some cinder blocks or sandbags on there, and it does a pretty good job. Now you can see I did not go north, south, east, west on this. Well, around here I just went around the tree, but since I did not want to destroy my yard like I did last year, I started off with aeration. Then I used my Sun Joe to pretty much take this down to bare ground, dethatched and scarified. But today, since my yard, is pretty good, I didn't want to do too much damage to it. So basically it's just one time around each spot. And that will give me some areas, for new seed to drop into without tearing up my yard. All right, we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to overseed today. Jonathan Green, Black Beauty, Solar Green, heat tolerant grass seed with Texas bluegrass. This stuff's expensive, about $7 a pound. And if you're starting a new yard, they recommend 4 pounds per 1,000. I've already got a yard, so we're going to see what the thing says about overseeding. For a Scotch rotary, they say put the dial on 7. That's what we're going to try. Had it set on 5 because the other day I put some mill organite down. All right, we're going to go up to 7. Seemed like last year I put it on 10 and it only took half as much as I thought it would take. So we'll try the 7 and see if it's too much or too little. We're trying to get about 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet right here. Here we go. I love doing this. They say one 7-pound bag, if you're overseeding, will do 3,500 square feet. I don't know. We're going to stop right here. Go around. So 2 bags should overseed about 7,000 square feet, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to do right here. I've got a lot more yard than that. I've got about close to 14,000 square feet. But for the experiment, we're going to keep it down around 5,000 to 7,000 square feet because I may do something else with the rest of the yard. I still have some of that Black Beauty Ultra Supreme left from a couple of years ago. I love that grass, but it's got perennial rye in it, and I just cannot get ryegrass to grow in the summertime down here underneath my trees, but it's beautiful grass. Okay, you don't need to watch me do the whole yard. I'll come back in a minute and let you know if setting number 7 was sufficient on this Scotch spreader. One bag, 1 7-pound bag on a Scotch spreader. The dial set at 7. Covered a whole lot more area than I thought it would. It's supposed to cover 3,500 square feet. I think I got close to 5,000 out of that, but that's okay. Last year I only put it down half strength on a new yard and it came out great. So I'm just going to leave it on 7, and that'll give me more areas I can put this seed down today. 2 bags of the solar green grass seed at setting 7. I was close to 9,000 square feet what I did, I'm guessing. That just goes to show you that each spreader is a little different. This is a pretty old spreader. It may not be calibrated right. But anyhow, I've got some Black Beauty Ultra. I think I bought this back in 2019. That's when I was using the Black Beauty Ultra Supreme. And I've got about 1/3 of a bag left. I'm going to not put this on my test area, but on some of the auxiliary areas, I'm going to go ahead and put some of that out. I've already got some solar green put down over here because I had so much left, but I'm going to overseed it with the Black Beauty Ultra. Now this does contain some perennial rye, but maybe it'll do okay over here because it's not as shady as my front yard. Still pretty shady though. The deed is done. I used 2 bags of the solar green, did about 8,000 square feet, and I had about 8 or 9 pounds of the Jonathan Green Black Beauty Supreme, Ultra Supreme, and I did about another 4, maybe 5,000 square feet. I didn't do anything behind my house. I just cannot get grass to grow here. Of course, this is where I test my ram pump. It stays too wet. And even with the stepping stones, I walk constantly over this ground. I think it's hard. So in the near future, I'll take my son Joe and scarify this section and maybe put some topsoil down here and get a small bag of some kind of grass. I've got some Kentucky 31. Heck, I got about 15 pounds, 20 pounds of that. I could put it back here, but I don't like that Kentucky 31 for a yard. Might be okay for a pasture, but it doesn't look good at all. Okay, well, I may go ahead and post this. If not, I might just keep this until a few weeks from now when we see if this stuff comes up. Appreciate you watching. This is what I call progress. Today I had my yard aerated, got my seed out, and went down and adjusted my ram pump where I'm getting about 35 gallons an hour right now because I'm using a whole lot of water to get this seed germinating. I'm using one of these oscillating sprinklers. Let me back up so I don't get my camera wet. And I'm only running it for maybe 5 to 7 minutes at a time and then I move it a little bit. But it covers a huge area. I would say that it's at least 20 foot by 20 by 10, 400 square feet at least, maybe more than that. But I've just been moving it every 5 to 7 minutes. And my pool holds 600 gallons. Now I was pumping into the pool at the rate of 30 gallons an hour the whole time I irrigated today. But I was easily able to do 10,000 square feet with 600 gallons. How much is that? Well, if I was putting an inch down, it would take 600 gallons per 1,000. And so if I did 6,000 feet, that would be 1/10 of an inch per 1,000. And I did almost twice that, so we're not putting very much water on the ground here. I mean, I had 3/4 of an inch of rain last night, and you see how wet the ground looks, and the seed laying right there is making direct soil contact. But all I want to do is just get it damp, and I'll do this a couple of times a day. That's all we're going to do for the next few days. I've decided I'm not going to use any starter fertilizer today. I've been taking care of this yard pretty good for a while. And it's just loaded with fish and worms. It's a rich yard. So what I'm going to do is just wait until this new grass seed germinates, which will be in a week or two. And then once it starts growing, then I'll go ahead and put some fertilizer out. It's not going to be an expensive starter fertilizer. I got some 10-10-10 I bought from Walmart, half price, because, this time of year they got all that kind of stuff on sale, getting ready for Halloween or Thanksgiving or Christmas. They don't want those 40-pound bags of fertilizer sitting there on their shelf. So anyhow, we'll take care of that on the next video. I'll probably go ahead and post this because there's not much more to see. We're going to wait till it germinates, and then I'll give you a wrap up on what I think about this grass seed. But so far, no complaints really. So my final video will probably be just letting you see how it looks after I've overseeded. I gave that a chance to germinate, and at that time I'll go ahead and do some fertilizing, and I'll probably, if I haven't heard back from Jonathan Green about using Tenacity right away, I'll just wait till I cut the grass a few times and put it down, because I know then there's no danger to this solar green. Last year when I put the Tenacity down, I had big patches of crabgrass and clover and everything else. My solar green had already germinated, and it did keep the POA away in this area. But if they get back to me right away and say, hey, yeah, go ahead and use it, I'll be out here tomorrow putting some Tenacity down. I'll let you know in my final video how that goes. Thank you again for being so patient for the past year. I hope this diary was helpful to you. If you decide to do something and you get impatient or things aren't looking exactly the way you wish they looked, you just go to my video, and everything just follows a chronological order. Looks like I'm going to have about 11 parts to the solar green. You just find out what time of year it is. That's all listed in my title. And see if your yard looks like mine. If it does, relax. Things end up pretty good for you.